stops us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Good afternoon again. Yep, again. Felt, oh no, I just figured it was, I should go live. All right, yeah, you're number one. Hi, Amber. See what this does. Whoa, I forgot that light isn't on. I would do it. On tonight's episode of Scary and Freaky. All right. I do it this way, unless I need to read something. All right. Kind of weird. I actually have some scary voices, but yeah. Okay. All right. And Dion said, let there be light. And there was light. That's right. So, yeah, we just had a pretty good meeting. Most of the meeting was Dion's grassroots women's meeting until Sean showed up and blew it. It's a really good meeting. An old friend of mine showed up because they were invited by somebody else. I got to reconnect with them a little bit. You know, even when I'm going through stuff like I have been today, I tend to think that nothing happens in this world by mistake. So, me too, Michelle. I love scary stuff. I know Amber does too. My wife won't let me listen to horror stories when I go to bed now, though. I don't know why I find it so comforting, but I do. So, yeah. So the topic, if you ain't uncomfortable, you ain't growing, right? Now that doesn't mean that you won't have serenity. See, when you can combine chaos and serenity together, that's kind of where it's at. You know, not everything's going to be rainbows and unicorns. You know, life doesn't work that way. In fact, if you have a friend where life is always great, check in on them often. Those are usually the people that, you know, that commit suicide. So those friends that are happy all the time, that are always trying to get other people to laugh and things like that, it's the process of depression, man. So check in on those people often. They're usually going through something. A good example of that would be Robin Williams. Yeah, he suffered with severe depression, man. They want to call mine severe depression, but I'm going to deny that. I'm going to deny it. You know, it can be, you know, especially as a man, it can be tough to talk about your feelings. Right. What this is really about is laurels and resting on our laurels. You know, they say that, and the thing is pain. They say that pain is the root of most change, of all change, actually, is what they say. Now, pain is not required in order to change. You can do that, but change is always uncomfortable for reasons, for very good reasons. So that's what we're going to be looking into today. Welcome to the Daily Trudge. My name is Dion. I know a few things here and there. If you're here, please say hello, whether you're watching the live or the rewatch. A lot of rewatch. All right, let's get started on this. I don't anticipate this being too long. I'm already pretty wore out, so I don't know how much of my brain. I think most of my brain cells are asleep. All right. Change can feel uncomfortable because it disrupts our comfort zones. Introduces uncertainty and can trigger feelings of anxiety or loss of control, as humans tend to seek stability and predictability. Yeah. Even if you're somebody, I ignore you. Amber says I ignore her on the rewatch, so she doesn't like watching those ones. Some people like the interactive portion. If you put something up, I'll usually say something. It gets pretty personal here. That's also why I'm not on things like TikTok. There aren't hundreds of people here saying it'd be hard to go through those. It'd be hard to do that. And that would probably kind of screw up my my rhythm also. Claire, good to see you. I see you. Yeah, we just had a great meeting, man. Yeah. I don't want to say that there's bad meetings, but those grassroots meetings seem to help more people. Seem to help a lot of people. Everybody kind of leaves with some hope in their pocket, right? So, but most humans they seek stability and predictability. Even those people that like to do just suddenly do things. We like the predictability. We like to know what somebody's probably going to do next, especially that stability. So when we're going through change and one of the ones, loss of control. Yeah. See, even though we alcoholics were out of control, we always like to be in control. And one of those oxymorons or not oxymorons, one of those paradoxes of alcoholism, right? So fear of the unknown. See, when we change, even though it might be kind of exciting because we're experiencing new things, we're able to utilize the tools that have been given us. It can still be scary because we don't know what the unknown is. I'd say that the biggest fear that a lot of people have coming into the program is losing their identity. They want to kind of lose who they are. But the thing is, we don't really know who we are yet. So that's not really something sustainable. Changing inherently involves stepping into the unknown, and this uncertainty can lead to anxiety and discomfort. Yeah. I mean, you're doing something new. It takes a lot of courage for somebody to understand that humility and character building are the ways to go. Something went through my mind, but I don't know that I can explain it right. Habit and routine. I've got a routine. And I don't really like being interfered with certain times of the day. Right. But it can be a disruption to our routine. Part of my routine's being disrupted right now. I usually like to have a lot of ice and Coke. I chew on ice. I've been able to chew on ice for like 3-4 days now. But I'm seeing a benefit in it because I'm not drinking even a quarter of the Coca-Cola that I usually drink. All right. And I've been doing a lot more water. In fact, where's my water? All right. I've still been drinking some, but it's no ice. It can't be cold. And I'm only drinking it because my body's craving it. So, and it is making it kind of uncomfortable. So I'm kind of detoxing from sugar and stuff right now. I can still see that, maybe this is a good chance for me to really cut back on my caffeine and sugar intake right now. Yeah. So see how I got to use my skills. I got to use my tools, even though I'm in discomfort. Clara Joyce says, even if we could see how we help, who we help, we would still think they need more help. Humans are creatures of habit, and we tend to find comfort in the familiar routines and processes. Remember when you quit drinking? How uncomfortable it was? Not just the physical aspect of detoxing, okay, but the mental and emotional discomfort that you went through. Right? Why? Because you weren't getting what you were familiar with. And even though it may have been a bad route, at least we were familiar with it. We had security. We kind of knew what was going to happen next, which was drinking. But at least we kind of knew that person. And there's comfort in the familiar. Okay. When faced with a change, individuals may feel uncertain, anxious, uncomfortable, and overwhelmed by unfamiliarity. Good evening, Patricia. It is good to see you. I'm glad you're here. All right. So, that uncertainness. And what does that kind of go? Well, they're going to talk about next. It's control. See, Dion needed to learn that I don't have control over everything that happens in this life. Even some of the stuff that goes on with me. I have no control over my tooth hurting right now. I don't have control over that. I can medicate it a little bit, and at least till I get to the dentist and get it taken care of, right? Right. Part of it is we can't forget that we were uncomfortable, that we were going through things. We kind of have to remember that, right? Being anxious, uncomfortable, loss of control. See, control was really the only thing that we had left. And even then, it wasn't a real control. Those incessant demands that I tend to put on other people for my own security. And their demands. Okay? Giving people ultimatums. Thinking I had control over their lives. I don't. Even when we get into sponsorship, we tend to think that we have a sponsor is not any higher than a sponsee. No, it's just a person that's been through the big book. That's all it really is, right? But even then, and we all go through it. It's part of the natural process. I went through it too. I'm like, well, I don't want to fuck with people's lives and stuff like that. What if I say something wrong? What if I do something wrong, right? Well, I got to have faith in my higher power. I have to have courage. Okay. And that could be uncomfortable too. But I have to remember, I don't have any power or control over other people, let alone some of the other things in my life, right? So significant changes can lead to a feeling of losing control. And what does that feel? Well, you feel powerless. You'll feel, it'll make you feel a little inadequate. That's okay. What you're doing is you're understanding your limitations. And it is important that we understand our limitations. Or I know when Dion doesn't understand them, what he does is he gets into a lane that he doesn't belong in. That's usually what happens. Significant changes can lead to a feeling of losing control, which can be disorienting. Yeah, disorienting. In other words, you don't know which direction to go. You're not sure which thought to have next. You're not, So when you hear people say things like, I do the next right thing, well, do you? Oh, I just do the next right thing. Well, what's the next right thing? Well, I don't know. Well, see, there you go. Because you should know the next right thing. And usually the next right thing is usually helping somebody else. Have you taken care of yourself today? That's a good one. today was my day that I get to talk to my friend Christine. She is in recovery. She doesn't go, she doesn't believe in God. She's not atheist, agnostic, and she has a great program. She has a great life. She has a great program. She still does a lot of what I do. But really, what we're doing is we're not doing anything professional. We're just a couple people going through some of the same problems. So we're checking in with each other. We're supporting each other. It doesn't, sometimes that uncertainty. Today was a good day for me to talk to her because she understands a lot of my intentions. And she also understands my clinical side and what it is that I go through because she goes through it too, right? But notice the one thing going through this on what it causes: anxiety. So we'll talk a little bit about anxiety. In fact, next, transition anxiety. Transition periods are often marked by uncertainty. They're just repeating themselves now. And we may not know what the future holds, which can create stress and worry. When you don't know what's going to happen, right? Here's a good one. You applied for a job, you did the interview, went great, but it's going to be a week before you hear anything. I can feel the anxiety coming from you right now. It's something that we want, but we're not going to know. Oh, Michelle said something here, and I missed it. I'm sorry. She said, "Me too. The last 4 months, I had to call my sponsor every morning at 9 a.m. I don't get up until 11. She just cut me free from that." That was kind of her. She just wanted that consistency, right? Now, every morning at 9 a.m., your brain is doing something. So I understand that intention. That's like 90 meetings in 90 days. We're just trying to prepare you to go to a meeting every day. That's all it is. That's all it really, I mean, there's more to it than that. You're going to learn a lot in those 90 days. And not only that, but when you do 90 and 90, you're making a commitment to yourself. I'm going to do that 90 and 90. See, now I've set a goal, and it's a healthy goal setting. And when I accomplish it, now remember, when it comes to 90 and 90, there's two parts. 90 meetings, 90 days. Not 90 meetings in 90 days. No. Get rid of the in. You got to go to a meeting every day for 90 days. The 90 is the goal, right? If you miss one, no biggie, double up the next day, things like that, right? Yeah. So Claire says, well, willing to go to any length. This absolutely has to do with willing to go to any length. Everything that we do is based on how willing we are to change. Everything's based on that. Willingness is the number one thing. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. That is the how of the program. So transition periods are often marked by uncertainty. I already said all that. Grief and loss. I didn't know this was going to be in here, but that makes sense. You go through grief and loss from the very beginning with two things. Number one, you just lost your best friend, alcohol. You just lost alcohol, and you're going to grieve it. You're going to be, you have those little pangs of missing it, just like you would a person or something like that. Yes, you are. Okay? And that's more of a loss. The grief comes from the death of the old self. Being reborn is highly uncomfortable. It is not a comfortable process. It's why a lot of people just won't do it. The uncertainty. And that's why a higher power is so important. Okay. It gives us the courage to do those things. Claire says, alcohol was my best friend. Not anymore. I cried like a baby. Yeah, it's like having a friend for life who stabs you in the back. Very much. Okay. When nobody else was there, alcohol was. If anything, it was a committed friend. It was hurting me, but it was a committed friend. All right. And then the death of the old self. You might even miss your old self sometimes. That's normal. That's normal. Remember some of those, because not everything that happened to me while I was drinking was bad. I had a lot of great times. But the bad times were starting to outweigh the good times by a bunch at the end, right? So grief and loss transitions can be experienced and processed like a loss. As we grieve for the loss of the old self, I didn't read ahead. It's repetitiveness. It just makes sense. While not fully understanding how to accept the new self. You ever been with somebody for a long time and then you're not around them, and 2 weeks later with somebody new, a little bit of relationship hopping? I don't think that's a very good example, actually. Your brain's preference for stability. Our brains are programmed for laziness and don't like change, as they prefer to conserve energy and stick to familiar patterns. Oh, shit. So, what does that mean? It means that we're going to have to go out of our way. It means we're going to have to kind of force ourselves to change. And that's going to take commitment. It's going to take willpower. Oh, it's going to take several things in order to accomplish that. And our brains aren't. Your brain's job is just to figure out what is the easiest way to do things. That's what it's there for. Claire says the loneliness hurts. The loneliness hurts. Do you want to know your real friends are? Quit drinking. Michelle says, I just went through and got over being envious of people that can drink with impunity. Right. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to watch other people enjoy themselves, non-alcoholics, while they're with alcohol. Okay. But think of this. If you see them drinking with impunity, it's because they don't drink enough to where the consequences become dire like us. One is enough. Less than one is enough. They don't need any more. See, with us, it's different because you're born with a high tolerance to alcohol. So one does really nothing to you. Might quench your thirst, but it's really not going to. Don't you remember the first time you drank? Even at that point, you drank more than everyone else. I know I did. I remember the summer of 83. Yeah, it was 83, 82. I would have been like 12 or 13. We had met some other kids, and they were visiting from Texas, but their dad was a state trooper, and he had a bunch of confiscated Jim Beam in his basement. Yeah, confiscated. I say that it wasn't confiscated; it was stolen. So we had no problem stealing it from him. And even then, one of my brothers was quite older than me. He would have been like 16, 17 at the time, and they had already done some drinking, but I could still drink more than them. All right, emotional education. Emotional education is often neglected by a culture that sees suffering as a sign of weakness. Oh, kerslap. I call that a Batman move. I'm talking about the TV show, where they hit each other and slap, boom, bang. Right. It's true. A lot of people with what I do and stuff I've always been called weak. Oh, what's his problem now? What's in your blah, 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 blah. What they don't know is if we sat down and talked about it, I'd probably knock the crap out of them emotionally. Right? I'm pretty self-aware, right? Says here, when faced with change, the basal ganglia can resist breaking established habits and routines, making it difficult to adapt to new behaviors and ways of doing things, leading to a sense of discomfort or unease when trying to change ingrained habits. Yeah. The thing is though is we we humans are actually very good at adapting. If not, we'd only live in one part of the world. There'd only be one part of the world where we live, because if we weren't able to adapt, right? And the human brain can adapt. It's very good at it. I brought up a couple of things with like drinking the soda. I've had to adapt. All right. Is change supposed to be uncomfortable? That's a great question. Change can be hard. Change can be so uncomfortable that it feels wrong. So your brain, even while you're going through change, knowing you're doing the right thing, your intuition, listen to your intuition, because your brain's just going to tell you how wrong you are. That's what happens. Again, its job is just to find the easiest, softest way. That's why when I say the more convenient your life is, the more comfortable your life is, the less freedom you have. Patricia says the only thing brain can't adapt to is pain. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, it can't adapt to pain. That's a good point. Thank you very much, Patricia. Because I kind of made it sound like it could adapt to anything. So I appreciate you setting the record straight on that. All right. So how can we deal with the anxiety that comes from change? Well, number one, be nice to yourself. You gotta be nice to you, right? You know, we do a lot of replacement in the program. A lot of this stuff is just replacement from old behaviors to new behaviors, an old set of morals to a new set of morals. Okay. But I would recommend that you don't make it harder than it needs to be either. Change's already tough. And and I haven't heard this in a while. There's a lot of things I don't hear in AA like I used to. In AA, what we say, you only need to change one thing, everything. Right? Clara says it's about balance between what I think I know and what I really know. Yeah, and if I don't, what's good is I can always go to an AA meeting and ask, "Hey, have you guys been through this kind of what's going on?" Right? I was just in a meeting with somebody where you wouldn't think that this person is going through wanting to drink. You wouldn't think it. It was great the way that they brought it up and handled it and told on themselves. Sometimes telling on ourselves brings relief, right? And you don't have to go to a meeting and do that. You can talk to a closed mouth friend, a confidant, therapist, your significant other. Okay. Fear is natural. Fear is natural. Right. So how do we work with that? Well, that comes from a higher power. Right. Look at all the things that you've gone through in your life and made it through just fine because you adapted. Right. So, all right. I think that was the last of my energy today. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it. I love you. You know I do. Peace out and have a day.